They thought nobody would ever find out. Then investigators showed up. Dealers thought nobody would ever find out. They thought the paperwork was buried. The customer would never notice. The deal was done. The car was gone. And everyone would simply move on. When they see those taillights going down the road, they think it's all over. But eventually, someone started asking questions. Started with one complaint, turned into several. Several turned into dozens. Then investigators showed up. And what they uncovered is exactly why we spent years warning car buyers to slow down, ask questions, and never blindly trust the paperwork. Now, before we go any further, this isn't a video saying every dealership is dishonest, because that simply is not true. There are plenty of ethical dealerships and honest people working in this business.
But today, we're talking about the dealerships that crossed the line, and more importantly, what investigators found after they did. Because for years, people have commented, "Kevin, your team is exaggerating," or "Dealers don't really do that. Nobody would risk their business over a few $100s.
You want to bet?
Yeah, let's look at what investigators across America have actually been finding.
Before we jump in, if you're shopping for a vehicle and you'd rather avoid becoming someone else's consumer complaint, our nationwide coaching team negotiates directly with dealerships, reviewing your paperwork, and helps protect buyers before they sign. You'll find the link on thehomeworkguy.com by clicking that big red button. Now, let's meet the investigators.
One thing I think surprises people is who investigates the dealerships. It's not just one agency. You've got the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, the State Attorney General's Office, Department of Motor Vehicles, the State Consumer Protection Divisions, financial regulators, local prosecutors, insurance investigators, and sometimes even federal law enforcement. Why is that? Because dealerships touch nearly every area of consumer law: financing, advertising, titles, taxes, identity verification, insurance products, warranty sales, privacy laws, credit reporting. If something goes wrong, there's usually an agency somewhere whose job is to investigate it. And they do. And there are so many laws that could potentially be breaking in the course of business, far more than most people often realize.
Now here's where things get interesting. When investigators begin looking through records, they're usually not looking for one mistake. They're looking for patterns of problems. Patterns tell a story. One customer might misunderstand something, but 5 customers start raising some eyebrows. Now, 50 customers? Now you've got investigators wondering if this wasn't an accident at all. And I can tell you from my own experience, when there's that many, it's not an accident. That's why so many investigations begin with consumer complaints. One person speaks up, then another, then another. Eventually, someone realizes these stories all sound remarkably similar. That's when things start getting uncomfortable for the dealerships.
What kinds of things have investigators uncovered over the years? It's quite a list. Customers paying for products they said they'd never agreed to purchase. Dealers may have told them they had no choice. Advertising prices that mysteriously changed once the buyers arrived. Vehicles represented one way online and another way inside the finance office. Interest rates nowhere close to what buyers expected. Hidden fees. Questionable documentation. Failure to properly process titles. Trade-in problems. Misleading warranty presentations. Payment packing. Yo-yo financing. Spot delivery issues. Missing disclosures, improper add-ons, identity and paperwork irregularities. Sound familiar? If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you've heard us warn our viewers about nearly every single one of these. Not because we guessed, but because we've seen these complaints from real buyers.
One thing that really fascinates me is how ordinary many investigations begin. Nobody kicks the door in on a dealership. It usually starts with one consumer saying something doesn't feel right. Then another. Eventually, an investigator asks for records. Then more records, then interviews, then additional documents. Pretty soon, people who thought nobody was watching discover that somebody actually was, and paperwork has a funny way of telling the truth.
So what's the big lesson here? Most dealership investigations don't revolve around one gigantic scam. They're often built from the bottom up with dozens or hundreds of small decisions. One extra fee here. One missing disclosure there. One product slipped into the contract. One customer rushed through the paperwork. One finance manager who assumed nobody would read page 7. One manager who figured the buyer would never come back. By themselves, these things may not seem enormous, but together, they create patterns that investigators can follow.
Hi, Kevin Hunter here. Now listen, some of you actually enjoy the dealer process. Some of you enjoy navigating all the dealer stuff we teach our audience about. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, we have plenty of free tools for you, and that's always been totally cool with us. but some of you others definitely don't like it at all. In fact, you hate going through the dealer sales process. If you'd rather not manage this process alone, our car coaching team handles new and used car deals nationwide for our viewers. New vehicles, used vehicles, leases, factory orders, and trade-ins. We get you written out-the-door prices for everything. We do all the negotiations so you don't have to battle dealers by yourself. There's always documentation oversight, and you do have a quarterback to consult with when you go into finance, because we never leave anyone on their own. Either your coach stands by for you or I do. Bottom line, we do all the work so you don't have to, and honestly, most people who use the service tell us the same thing. They wish they had done it sooner. And yes, the intake call for the service is done directly by yours truly, me. If that sounds like the kind of car buying you'd prefer, consider using our hassle-free car buying service. Just find the big red button on the homepage at thehomeworkguy.com and read all about it. All right, let's get back to the show. And this is exactly why we keep telling people, stop shopping by monthly payment, because that's where so many problems begin. Once your brain locks into one monthly payment, almost everything else becomes invisible in the deal. The selling price, interest rate, loan length, dealer products, fees, negative equity, service contracts, paint protection, gap, etching, nitrogen, window tint, accessories. Investigators have repeatedly found that buyers often leave knowing their payment but having very little understanding of the actual contract they just signed. That's a dangerous place to be.
Here's what I hope people take away from today's video. This isn't about becoming afraid of dealerships. It's about becoming an educated consumer. It's about always being on your guard. The overwhelming majority of investigations could have been prevented if buyers had slowed down and taken a bit more time, asked more questions, compared written offers, read every page of the contract, and refused to be rushed, and then walked away when something didn't feel right before you sign. Those are simple habits, and they're incredibly powerful.
For years, we've said, trust paperwork, not promises. Get everything in writing. Negotiate the out-the-door price first from home. Read every document, question every fee, and never let anyone rush one of the biggest financial decisions that many of you will make in your lifetime. And today, those aren't just our opinions. They're lessons reinforced by investigators all across America. Because when investigators finally arrive, they don't care what someone promised on the showroom floor. They care what the paperwork says. And by then, it's often too late for the customer who let their guard down a little too early. So, slow down, protect yourself, ask questions. And if you'd like our team to negotiate your next vehicle or review your paperwork before you sign, well, visit thehomeworkguy.com. Click on that big red button on the homepage. We'd much rather help you avoid a bad deal in the first place than help you clean up a huge mistake after the fact. Make sure you follow and like the video, and please comment below with your own car buying stories.